Hello again, my MMA true believers. I am Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and my guest is a talented new addition to the already stacked Bellator featherweight division. And he is a UFC and Brave CF vet, as well as a PFL Season 2 semifinalist. He makes his Bellator debut on the 19th at Bellator 253 against Matt Bessette, and that man is the one they call JBC, aka Jeremy Kennedy. Jeremy, thanks for the time in the lead up to your Bellator debut.
Oh man, thank you very much for having me on.
Now, so you unfortunately have been away from fighting for over a year now. Now, there is a good bit to talk about before we even get into this fight with Matt Bessette. Now, first, I want to go back to your PFL Season 2 semifinals fight, at a fight you lost to Daniel Pineda, who eventually was removed from his finals matchup because he tested positive for a performance enhancer. First, what was your reaction when you found out about his positive test? Because you lost out on a very good payday. Aside from, let's say, if you would have won the million, the runner-up gets paid a lot in the PFL.
Yeah.
So not only that, what were your reaction to that? Also, were you surprised that you didn't get picked to be the fill-in against Lance Palmer instead of the other person that was chosen?
Gilpin, yeah. Honestly, it was one of those things that's completely out of your control.
Mm.
I was frustrated. Um, when you hear stuff like that happens, it's tough, especially both guys. Luis as well. It wasn't as popular and populated because he lost his fight, but
Mm.
you got to think, if somebody doesn't just start doing performance enhancers, and the testing wasn't too strict in our first opening round.
Okay.
So the first time I fought him, there's pretty good odds that it was um, the same situation. So I just
Wow.
feel kind of got a tough dealt hand, the whole way through. And then I was thinking, okay, well, it's all right, get into that final. But in the deep in the rule books, it was the higher seeded semifinalists got to go. So
Ah.
to have Gilpin, for the third time, but just because it was in the rule book and you know, ink that it had to be done. But then you got to also think that there's a lot of different ways to go about it. He
Mm.
it was turned to a no contest, so I wasn't really the hot losing semifinalist, but
Mm.
that was after the finals.
Yeah.
Um, and then you got to think, like I said, if Luis didn't just start doing performance enhancers, that first fight that knocked me lower in the rankings than Gilpin could have been a compromise as well. So
Mm.
it's all said and done now. I still take positive out of everything. Like I'm not gonna say it was a bad experience or whatever. I'm super glad I did this season, and unfortunate things happened, but I gained a lot of experience and a lot of experience.
And what do you mean by like the testing was different from earlier in the season to the playoffs? Was there specific differences that you remember that stood out that made you say that?
Yeah, well, we our first fight was in New York in Long
Okay.
Island, and it was all by commission done. So PFL just appointed it to the commissions, and then our playoffs were in Nevada, so a lot stricter of a testing.
Ah, okay.
Tested us a couple times, and so I guess something went undetected, or what happened. Like we didn't really even get tested. I don't think in New Jersey. I can't remember now, but I just remember for sure that Vegas was a lot stricter than. I think we might have been P tested in New York, but I can't remember, so don't quote me on that. But I just remember Vegas was they tested us twice.
Was this move to Bellator possible because were you released after PFL made it public that they were postponing, canceling season 3, or were you not offered a return from the PFL for season 3 in the first place?
Yeah, I was getting ready for season three. It was in my contract that if I made it to the semifinals, I was automatically in.
Hmm.
So they had me locked down regardless. Um, and then so when they canceled everything, we was kind of radio silent for a few weeks there, and we didn't know what was going on. And then Ali messaged me and said, "Hey man, they released you." And when they came out with this $1,000 stipend or whatever, and so I wasn't really contesting it too much. I was like, you know what, I would rather be able to have options, and that's what he was saying too. He's like, man, it's a
Yeah.
blessing in disguise because who knows what this situation is going to turn into, or And now you look at all these other guys that are all locked down that are really voicing their opinion on it, you know? So I was, yeah, blessed in disguise, man. And then this is the best case scenario for my whole career, man. I'm really happy with Bellator already. I haven't even fought for him
Was
yet.
a UFC return ever a possibility when you became available, when you were released from the PFL? Because you went 3-1 in the promotion, with the only loss being to the dude who's the champion now. Like, was that ever in the cards, or they never came calling?
Yeah, I was keeping options open. You know, Bellator, I really had my eyes set on. Um, but the UFC, it was just a little bit tougher because I need a work visa, and they're doing a lot of the UFC when everyone's like, oh, you know, you just we're picking everybody up and whatever. They're doing a lot of short notice things, but those
Yeah,
are all guys who don't need visas or American citizens, you know. And
yeah.
so I wasn't eager. I wasn't trying to be like, oh, I'm gonna jump in short notice. It was actually when Bellator started doing the shows in Europe, like Paris and Italy and stuff like that, right in October, September, October is when I was like, oh man, like now is my chance to kind of stay in shape, get ready to go, and that's when the whole deal kind of got put together. Anyways, was about yeah early October, and then even for me to be able to fight here, I had to wait a few weeks for my visa to get all processed and everything like that, and now the ball's rolling. Then Bellator knew I was eager. They knew I was in the States just training and getting ready for waiting for something, and here it is.
Does this Bellator deal? Because I'm glad you mentioned that. You know, you were pretty good money wise after the PFL. Because I don't think a lot of people realize the PFL does pay pretty well. It's not a huge roster for the fighters that do fight for them, they make pretty good money. Is this Bellator deal more than you made in the UFC? More than Brave CF? More than PFL? Is it similar? Less? Is there not only going somewhere you really want to go? Is there a financial windfall for you in doing this?
Absolutely, yeah. It's
Okay.
best contract that I've been a part of, and I'm just happy with a PFL season. The show goes on no
Yeah.
matter what. You know, they're having their three regular seasons, and then when it's playoff time, it's October 17th. Like for example, and now if you get hurt, you get anything happens that date doesn't work for you, you're out, and they'll replace you. They'll bring somebody else in, whatever. There's not much stability unless you're ready to go 100%.
Yeah.
Now you're out. If you're out for the playoffs, now they bring somebody else in, you're jobless or you're waiting for next year. Bellator is more of like a promotional, like the UFC, where
Yeah.
something comes up, you get delayed, you get an injury. Oh, I can fight in 3 4 weeks or whatever. They can. It's a little bit more stability. I have a 4 fight deal, and I'm just happy to make this a home now. It's not a season for season, a yearly format, or at the end of every year I'm wondering, what's next. Like I found a home and I hope to stay here for a long time.
Now let's talk about this fight with Matt Bessette. He has a lot of experience with a couple of fights in the UFC, one in Bellator, but the bulk of his career has been fighting in CES. You have competed at the highest levels and did well, for example, in the UFC. He has had a career where he can't seem to get over that hump and maintaining a spot at the highest level. When scouting him, what do you feel like are his weaknesses that maybe have held him back, maybe are costing him to not reach that success level consistency? Because in 33 fights, the guy has only been finished once, so certainly toughness is not a weakness for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a durable guy, but he's just watching it. Yeah, like he's just got some holes that I plan to exploit. The in betweens. He's the wrestling, the transitional stuff like that. He's either striking or he's grappling. And if he's
Mm,
grappling, first to be on the ground on the bottom. And in MMA, when you're it's like Hail Mary after Hail Mary when you're a bottom guy in MMA. And on the feet, he's very durable. He's good. Like he throws his punches well and everything, but I just think sometimes he comes up short because he can't mix them all together. And now with his age getting a little bit up there with the amount of fights he has,
mm-hmm.
that's damage. It's not just a guy who's 35 and has had 10 12 fights. He's had, like you said, 33. Um, and a lot of those tough fights, he's had a lot of back and forth fights, and his fights in the UFC were tough. The Contender Series.
Mm-hmm.
I know it got overturned, but that was a tough fight for him too. But the guys he's beating too, they're all tough. So you can't look past that as well. He's still fighting. Yes, at the upper echelon, he's not quite getting the job done, but he's these guys on CES and everything like that. Like what was the guy who just won recently? Kevin Kroom. Like he's got tough wins on his record as well.
Yeah.
So I can't pass that at all. I just think when it comes to caliber of opponents, I'm just going to be a little bit too much for him, and I think it's just going to be another a victory for me in my
It
Bellator
always
debut.
seems like whenever a major promotion adds good Canadian fighters, the story often is this move could help so and so in the Canadian market. Stories and like tweets about your signing with was no different because the market is a really really good revenue source for mixed martial arts promotions, but and you are a talented fighter like I mentioned with a whole lot of upside still so young. Do you like being viewed in that way, like maybe the next big Canadian star for a top promotion, like their possible face of Canadian MMA, or is that kind of weird for you?
It's been like that my whole career. When I see it was, this could be the new face of Canadian MMA and whatnot. It's to me, it's just I want to be one of the best featherweights in the world.
Mm.
Yes, Canada. I'm repping Canada, and Canada is my who I have the flag I carry into the fights, but I'm no different than any of these American-based guys when it comes to the competition and the way I want to be viewed in the media, especially here. This guy's a threat. This guy's a guy that's gonna do big things in this division, not so much the Canadian because Canada is great for MMA. We have our guys. We don't need somebody to carry us on our back. The people aren't giving us enough credit.
Mm.
There's a lot of good, talented fighters coming out of Canada, and it's just going to be more and more. They don't need to be praised as such. They just need to be. We're all on the same level in the sense of I feel like our best can stack up against the best in any country.